Toronto native David Furnish led Toronto's Pride Parade Sunday as the Grand Marshal, making his way through the rain without ever letting his smile slip. Well, in addition to being a filmmaker and entrepreneur, the husband of Elton John is a leading advocate for gay rights and equality. I sat down with him ahead of this weekend's parade to talk about life, love, and being back home. David, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got a busy weekend. The big Pride Parade is ahead. You agreed to be a Grand Marshal.
I did.
In this.
Yeah.
With all of the requests that you get, you said you'd do this.
Well, this was an easy one because Toronto is where I grew up, and it's amazing and quite sort of wonderfully coincidental that on the weekend that the American government Supreme Court has ruled in favor of gay marriage, that I'm in Toronto as the Marshal of the Parade. It feels the sort of thing I could never have imagined what I would see happen in my lifetime.
There's been so many milestones along the way and so much to celebrate. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah, there's a long way to go in terms of true equality in relation to different policies in different parts of the world, and certainly where LGBT people are concerned in 81 countries, it's still criminalized. A lot of the work that I do is related to HIV/AIDS. And we're seeing an alarming growth in new infections around the world. And we're seeing this growth in new infections is in countries where people are marginalized and stigmatized and criminalized because of their sexuality. Because if you stigmatize someone for being gay, you stigmatize the disease. And what happens is it doesn't just affect gay people, it affects everybody. So people don't want to present for HIV tests. They don't want to go and pick up their medication. They don't want to start a dialogue with their doctors. They're frightened of being associated with something that they deem being illegal.
I was reading this in an article when you were talking about when you were younger and talking to your mom in the initial stages of trying to kind of figure this whole thing out, let her know where you were coming from. And she was scared for you.
She was frightened on every possible level. And I remember the thing that I grappled with at the time was there were no role models. You know, I was studying business at university in Canada. I came from a happy family with brothers, and I wanted a lasting union. I wanted children. I wanted a successful career. And there wasn't anybody that I could point to anywhere. My mom said, I fear for you because all the things in life that have brought me so much joy aren't available to you. And I couldn't say, yeah, but look at so-and-so or look at this person. There wasn't anyone. And then at that same time in '82, AIDS was starting to rear its head, and it was being called the gay plague. And people were dying horrible, lonely, isolated deaths. People were being refused treatment. They were being kicked out of their homes, fired from their jobs. It was frightening. And my mom just looked at all of that and she said, I don't want that for you. And I couldn't rebut it. I couldn't say, no, you're wrong, Mom. Here's the wonderful version of this life. It just didn't exist. You've
been with Elton now for many, many years, but when it became legal, you both decided you wanted to make it official last year.
Yes.
You could have just said, you know, we're together. We had a civil union. We've been together for years. We've got a couple of children. We're good. Yeah. But you wanted to make that official.
Yeah, I mean, we felt it was so important to acknowledge the change in legislation. So many people have fought so long and hard for these changes. It's been a long uphill battle, and people have really carried the torch valiantly and for such a long period of time. And I look back to our civil partnership, which was 9.5 years ago, and the whole world sat up and took notice. And I think in our own little way, we kind of pushed the peanut along a little bit further down the road to change. But to not acknowledge this new evolution and change and say, okay, it started as a civil partnership, now it's full marriage equality, to not celebrate that and acknowledge that existed for people, and again to put forward a positive message and a positive spin on it, we felt that would have been ashamed. And also, you know what? It's nice to be married. Yeah. I have to tell you, it's so funny because you go into these things feeling very idealistic about the example you set to the world, and then when the dust settles and in the ensuing weeks you actually feel really contented because you feel like your relationship is accepted and supported by your society, and that's really satisfying.
And the kids? How are they?
The kids are amazing. They have just changed our life immeasurably. Having them as part of the wedding was really important to us because it's a big part of their history. And they loved it. And my 4-year-old the next day was out playing in the garden, and he said, I want to get married too.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and he said, when can I get married? And I just said, well, when you meet the person in life that you really love. And he said, well, I haven't found that yet.
Good for him for 4. He's going to take his time.
He's been together for 4. But it was great for them to be a part of that for us. And now our whole life is changing because I think as adults we've lived, partly selfish lives. And when you have children, I think it's very important that you put them first. And Elton and I are changing the whole landscape of our careers and what we do so that we can be in one place more often, and that we can have the kids enrolled in school and have their own community and their own identity and their own sense of purpose and figure out who they want to be in life.
How do you cope, though, with, there's so many people that look up to you. You are an icon because of everything that you've done. But then there's the underbelly side of having that spotlight on you, maybe even more so in England than here, I don't know.
You know, it's sort of, I don't really think of myself in the same levels of fame that someone like Elton has, because he's written music for over 50 years that's really been like a soundtrack to so many people's lives, and they have a real profound connection with him through his music. I'm lucky. I can get on the subway and go up to North York and visit my folks. And
you can, and you're,
yeah,
you're okay?
And I'm fine, and I sit on the subway and nobody bothers me or, you know, takes my picture. Occasionally you might get a slight sort of glimpse of recognition. When you're doing stuff publicly, it's only for, it's work. It comes with the job, and you step into the limelight and then you quickly step out of it again, and our life is the same as anyone else's, you know, sitting around the breakfast table, looking at the newspapers, drinking coffee, watching television, playing with the dogs, playing with the kids. That's normal, and that's pretty much what you do most of the time. And then things like this are about your work and what you do and what you stand for, and hopefully, you know, putting a positive message out into the world and affecting positive change. I didn't have a role model when I was 21. Because just for such a long period of time, I just accepted it. I accepted I would never be the same as anyone else.
Because you even had two sets of friends for a while.
I did. I had my straight friends, I had my gay friends. I hoped I would never be out with my gay friends and bump into my straight friends. It's like having a big monkey on your back. And it knocks you down. It knocks down your confidence, and I have to say part of it poisons your soul, because it doesn't allow you to, you know, walk through life and feel good about yourself and feel proud about yourself. And I think as we evolve societally, we learn about the importance of self-esteem and the importance of accepting who you are and being proud of who you are, whoever you are. And that was a big thing to overcome. The other thing is, because there's been more visibility, and this is where real change happens, the younger generation of people come into the world, it's not an issue. It's because there is now a public face, and there's so many role models in the media, in business, in the entertainment that we watch.
And critical in high school, because that's where a lot of these kids,
really critical,
you know,
really critical. And what we know is ignorance and fear and lack of understanding are what breed hate and intolerance. And where there's understanding, and where we build bridges in life, and where there's love, and there's acceptance. It's a bit like when they passed gay marriage in Canada 10 years ago. The sky didn't come falling down. So the foundations of our society didn't crumble. In fact, I would argue it probably made our society in this country much stronger and much richer, because the more people feel supported and accepted, the more society as a whole lifts and elevates.
Such a great message. I'd like to leave it there because it's such a great message, and thank you so much. I know you've got a lot on your plate while you're here. What a pleasure. Thank you kindly.
Great to meet you. Thanks.